Hello, 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 and welcome to the 11th episode of Mixed Media Reviews Season 4. My name is Kelsey, and today I'm going to be talking about a TV show. Today's TV show is One Day on Netflix. So, I didn't really know pretty much anything about the show before watching it. It was kind of on my radar, I guess, as it had popped up on Netflix, like on my home screen before. But then my best friend told me that I had to watch it, and like an idiot, I did as she said. So, what is this show about? Well, it's about two people, Emma and Dexter, who meet on the graduation day from a university in Edinburgh on July 15th, 1988. Each episode is a snapshot in time on that same day, year after year. And this is really all you need to know. That's it. Right now, if you haven't seen the show, turn this off and go watch it. I know I say that about a lot of things, but this is, I think, the best show that I've seen this year so far, and maybe even the best of last year as well. I cannot stress how good this show was and how much it benefited me to not know anything going into it. I do not promise a spoiler-free episode. In fact, there's going to be some crazy spoilers. And I also don't promise that I'm not going to cry, because that's also a possibility. And on that happy note, let's jump right in. Let's talk about everything that I loved about the show. And we're going to start with the plot. Obviously, I love the show, as I can't stop saying, but there are so many reasons to absolutely love it. And one of those reasons is the storytelling. I know this was a book prior to the show, and apparently a terrible movie that I'm sure no one wants to even bring up, so we won't. But the idea to tell a story on the same day, moving forward, jumping through time, is absolutely genius. Part of that is, of course, because we can see their lives unfolding over more than a decade it happens. But I think it makes you even more invested in their stories, in their relationships, and their lives. But I think the bookend of the series is also just that much more powerful, because there's so much emphasis on this July 15th date. And, we have big things, we have small things, we have nothing happening on these days throughout the show. But of course, the big thing that happens, and this is, the massive spoiler of this, they meet on July 15th, 1988, only for her to die on July 15th, 2002, I believe. And I think there's such beauty in that symmetry, to know that one's life can be utterly and entirely changed in one day, for better or for worse. And I think that's kind of basically the theme of the entire show. Things don't always go the way you want it. Things can take longer than you think. We look at Dexter and Emma and see two completely different people with completely different backgrounds. But they are also constantly at different points in their lives. That first night when they both meet and they're talking about their future, Emma knew exactly what she wanted to do post-university, while Dexter didn't really have any idea of what he wanted to do. And yet it's Dexter who finds the early success while Emma continues to struggle. When Emma finally finds something that she ends up liking when she's teaching, and still, obviously, while not what she wanted, it's something she's comfortable with, is something that she feels has a better future, we see that Dexter begins to fall. The friendship has its ups and downs until finally their paths converge and they end up together. And yet again, we see that it still isn't going how they wanted. Even together, they struggle. They struggle to have a baby. And then Emma dies, and Dexter is completely shattered, regressing as his life is once again not how he pictured it. I don't think anything has quite shattered me in the way that this show has, at least in recent memory. Well, or I guess that would be true prior to the X-Men 97 episode number 5. But besides that, it absolutely just gutted me. I sat there at the end of that episode where she gets hit by the car, and I just stared at the screen. I texted my best friend, Tara, with a no text and with like 5 crying emojis. And then I watched the next episode, and it's like my face couldn't stop producing tears. After it ended, I had to just go upstairs to hug my husband while he played a video game, which then had me crying again. And then when I came back downstairs and continued to text Tara, I was crying even more. I will say that part of this is because she had told me early on that the actor who plays Dexter, Leo Woodall, reminded her of my husband, and I could kind of see it. And that just made it that much worse. But her death still just struck me so hard. It had been building to it all season, I guess you'd say. The entire show was building towards it. And even though I had guessed that Dexter would be the one to die with all of the smoking and the cancer I thought was going to happen, and ended up being her. And it just, it was really rough because we had seen them struggling to get pregnant. And then on top of that, when you are struggling with that and then lose the partner that you had been trying to have a child with, it is just that much more devastating. Wanting a child with someone only to lose that someone and be not only without them, but without a piece of them in the form of a child. That is super rough. There's also the scene in episode 12 where the two of them are in Paris. Dexter had just divorced his wife, and Emma had just published her first novel, which, side note, he mentions her signing it and tells her to put the date, another big thing, on this same day. And he's opening up a bit about the divorce, and there's this part about him talking about his relationship with his daughter, how he only gets her once every 2 weeks, just one night stay, and how he doesn't ask for more time because he can tell that his daughter doesn't really want to. She doesn't really know him. And he's having this monologue. Leo Woodall is just speaking, and the camera is slowly closing in, and the music is just so poignant. And when he finishes, it cuts to Emma, and she just has this look on her face, this deeply saddened look, like she's fallen in that same pit that Dexter has and doesn't know how to get out. She doesn't know how to fix it. And it's just soul-crushing. And it was, not only is the writing so good in that scene and is Leo Goodall's performance in that scene so good, but just the fact that there's still like cafe noises happening around them. Life is still going on, and it's pushing in on his face, and he's just talking to the air, and just his mannerisms of the scene is just, it pulls you in along with the camera, and it's just so well done. And then, of course, later in that same episode on the bridge in Paris, we are still getting that same juxtaposition. Dexter is at a low, even says, "When I was younger, everything seemed possible, and now it's like nothing does." In the cafe, he was apologizing to Emma because, this wasn't the plan. And yet for Emma, this is where her life is actually looking up. She just got published with her first book. She's in Paris to research her next one. And we don't know this yet, but she's met a guy she started dating. For her, the possibilities, for once, are endless. For her, it is only this time, not when she was young, that they seemed so. And it's just so good. It's such an incredibly moving story, with characters that you root for and also want to shake and tell them to grow up at times. It felt like I was on a never-ending roller coaster, wanting them to be together or wanting them to stay far, far apart. Wanting them to be better, to discover that they are meant to be together. It was just so good. I absolutely loved this show, and it really makes me want to read the book now, but I feel like I need a break from it still. I need time apart before I can dive back into that world. Everything else about the show is just perfection. I love the actors. I mentioned Leo Woodall, who is fantastic. Emma is played by Ambika Ahmad, who is wonderful as well, as were all the other actors in this entire show. Tim McInnerny, I think that's how you say his name, plays Dexter's father. He was also in Doctor Who in that Planet of the Ood episode with Donna. He was like the rich dude. Anyway, but his scenes after his wife's death were also just so gut-wrenching when he's trying to find himself in the world and also still try to connect with his son. It was just so good. And then the wife, who was played by, I think, Essie Davis, she was also phenomenal. And I just loved every character, and I loved, obviously you don't love the character, but they were all really good, and they were all really well written, and I loved everything. I can't stop gushing about this. I told my family about it, and my dad hated me, and my grandmother, who had tried watching it before but hadn't finished it, and she finished it on my recommendation, and I think she hates me now too. But I'm pretty sure they both liked it, because how can you not? I have no critiques. To be fair, I did watch this about a month ago, so maybe I could have thought about some negatives, but honestly, I loved it. I loved everything about it, and all those people who didn't like it are wrong, and that's fine. If you've listened this far and haven't seen it, well, you should still watch it because it's so good, and I can't believe you still haven't watched it. But if you have watched it, well, you're great, and I love you, and please never change. There you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Netflix original One Day. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Mixed Media Reviews Podcast. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you agreed or if you have any suggestions. You can also find me anywhere you find your podcasts, probably, though using Spotify would help. And also, I think I'm on YouTube Music now, or just YouTube, whatever replaced Google Podcasts, which I'm still really bummed doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, next week I'll be reviewing a movie. I don't know what movie it will be though. There are a few that I watched recently that I'd like to discuss, but I'm still not quite sure which one I'm going to pick. If you have a suggestion, let me know. Maybe I can review that instead. Or if you want, I can tell you the options that I'm thinking about and you can pick them. So I'll tell you them. You can pick from one of those or suggest something else. But my choices are the Netflix movies Damsel and Love Again, and then the newer-ish Marvel movie that I finally got around to watching, The Marvels. So let me know what you want. Okay? Yep. Thanks. Okay. Have a rest of boops. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.